my name is Ashley Morris, Field Marketing Manager at Tealium. I have the pleasure of thanking you all for joining us for the first webinar in our series, Summer of Data Love Playlist. Now more than ever, we're seeing that customer experience really is the new battleground, and regardless of your industry, consumers have high expectations. To innovate today, you need to be able to understand your customers through data. You need to be tuned into their needs, their privacy requests, their expectations, and you must be listening. At Tealium, we believe there are 5 principles for creating meaningful customer experiences based on data, and this also serves as the framework for our 5-week summer series. And to help you remember these principles, we've created an acronym, TUNED. Trusted, unified, now, everywhere, and delight. The first principle and the focus of today's session is trust. Buyers expect a trusted experience and they expect their privacy preferences to be upheld, which is where we're going to spend some time today. Before we begin the webinar, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping items. This webinar will last approximately 30 minutes and will be recorded. The recording will be made available after the end of the session. We have some related resources available to you in the attachments and links section on the platform, so please feel free to engage with them at any point. If there's something you find helpful or important during this webinar, we encourage you to share socially. You can mention @Tealium and @Acxiom. We want to hear your questions. Please use the Q&A feature to submit them, and we'll be sure to follow up with you after. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Mike Anderson founded Tealium in 2008 and has served as the chief architect behind the company's market-leading customer data hub solutions, which include tag management and API hub, customer data platform with machine learning, and data management. David Skinner serves as chief strategy officer at Acxiom. In his role, David oversees strategy and innovation of new markets, channels, and offerings. As part of the executive team, David provides leadership on strategy and growth for Acxiom's global business. And with that, I'll pass it over.
All right, thank you, Ashley. Good morning, David. Welcome to the Summer of Data Love.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, data and data trust. I know we got a lot of information because we've been doing data for a long, long time. Unique opportunity with data today. We have a lot of the big vendors out there, the Googles and the Amazons and the Facebooks, where they've managed to figure out how to gain the trust of their end users, and so users are logging into those tools across multiple devices, Dropbox, iCloud, all those different solutions. And now we're getting to the point where we've got individual brands that don't have anywhere near that footprint, and they're trying to build better relationships with the customers so that they can build better experiences. And so in order for me to want to log in, I have to trust the brand. And so we know now that data is going to many different places, and everyone is really trying to improve the experience. And unfortunately, where we are today is if a customer is burned by data misuse, really, I think you've got a situation where almost every data vendor will really suffer, because it's not like customers just say, well, I'm going to stop sharing my data with this vendor. It kind of is like, I'm going to just remove data sharing altogether. And so it really is up to us as an ecosystem, as a group of data technology vendors, to kind of put forth best practices and almost in some cases hold each other accountable. And so that's why I'm excited about the Tealium and Acxiom partnership. And I'm excited to have discussions like this, because I think we can start to make change in this trust arena. And so let's start off. How would you define doing good by your customer with everything we have today?
Sure, yeah. So, I think on the one hand, doing good by your customer hasn't changed at all in the current economy. On the other hand, I think it has changed dramatically in some ways. So, in terms of what hasn't changed at all, I think doing good by your customers as it relates to using their data really comes down to value exchange. So, like you said, some of the biggest tech companies in the world have created real valuable and compelling experiences using our data. And what makes that work for us as a customer is if you feel like you're getting something out of it. So I think the importance of value exchange for if your data is being used by a brand that you interact with, you should really feel like you're getting something valuable in return is key. So that's always been the case, and I think that continues to be the case. I think what has really changed in this COVID economy that we're in is the importance of really social good in the component of social good in doing good by your customers. And what I mean by that, and I pulled a stat on this because I think put some numbers around the notion that, hey, we all feel better doing business with brands that we feel like are socially tuned in with our values. But Nielsen did a recent study where 55% of global online consumers across 60 countries, so this is a worldwide sample, said they're more likely to pay more, or they're willing to pay more for a product or service from a company that is committed to positive and social environmental impact. So aligning with our customers and our brands who want to be having a positive social impact in this tremendously challenging economic time will be increasingly important, I think, both for Acxiom and Tealium around helping those brands really do good or do right by their customers in today's environment.
I totally agree, and right now with COVID, I mean, this is a major this is a major disruption that we have right now. That with COVID, people really have no alternative but to create a digital relationship with a lot more vendors just because of what's going on, and so now we're in a situation where that data needs to be trusted even more. And it is about building that harmonious relationship, because before, there may be restaurants or there may be stores that are close to where I live, and those are the places that I go to. But now, when I'm talking about building digital relationships, I can interact with international companies and companies on the East Coast, and so the need for trust and the need for value exchange is really elevated. And I think one thing that at least a lot of our customers, and I know your customers are learning this too, is that this data harmony relationship that they are building between their customers, it's a perpetual thing. This is not just a set it and forget it, like, hey, I built this privacy statement and we're good to go now. This is really something where you actually have to work to continue. I mean, it's like any relationship, right? You have to continue to work to keep it going. And so for you guys at Acxiom, what are you guys doing around brand trust in the arena of data?
Yeah, sure. So I can't talk to specific customers just based on the confidentiality of our relationships, but I'll give you a couple examples that are indicative of the kinds of things we're supporting that have been very well publicized. So in today's economy, something that's really caught on in terms of data use is in helping companies speak to subsets of their consumers that belong to particular groups. And what I mean by that is, the example that's been around for a long time with amusement parks and those businesses is if someone's an in-state resident and you can validate that, you're open to giving them an in-state discount. So for example, if whether it's Six Flags in New Jersey or Cedar Fair in Ohio or Disneyland in Florida or California, if you can validate using data that someone's local, then they get the local pass. So that's just kind of a simple example of using data for good. Whereas a customer, I'm getting something out of that. I'm getting a discount in return for sharing data about myself and the brand being able to validate that. Some more recent examples of that have been around marketing promotions targeted to first responders. So with so many places in lockdown, first responders are really one of the few groups that have been kind of out and about and consuming in any quantity, certainly in some industries. And you've seen some great examples from whether it's gas companies or even some of the communication companies like a Verizon, or on the gas companies, whether it's ExxonMobil or Chevron, providing discounts to people who can actually validate and verify that they're a first responder. So as an example, to again put some real numbers to this, there's about 4 million first responders in in the U.S. Between just under 3 million registered nurses, about 500,000 doctors, about 900,000 EMS and paramedics, and a number of companies have offered up promotions. Hey, if you can prove that you're a first responder, we'll give you 50 cents off on each gallon of gas, or we'll give you a deeper discount on your mobile plan, with really high participation rates. So, one release I saw, a company had close to 650,000 registered first responders in return for this promotion. So that's, of a population of 4 million total, to have 650,000 registered just for your own brand's promotion. Those are really strong numbers. So, and Acxiom, as a data partner, has data about individuals. We can, through our data set, validate whether someone's a nurse or not, as an example. Clearly, with Acxiom data, for adults in the U.S., we have a very accurate view on where they live. So, to the question of are you in state or not, we have partners who turn to us for that information. So that gives you a couple examples of how we've supported using data. Not in kind of the example my friends and family always joke about with me when they hear I'm in digital marketing or advertising, of, hey, do you do those creepy ads that follow me around once I shop for something on an online website? I can't get the shoe that I browsed to stop following me around across the internet. That's clearly an example of data that's maybe not working as effectively as we want as a brand on our behalf. But lots of other ways, kind of where I started the discussion around how customers getting value out of it.
It's a really good lead in, because for me at Tealium, it brings up the theme of identity, and a lot of times people just think that the theme of identity is really just, how do I get the email address so I can do email marketing campaigns? But I tend to look at the theme of identity as really understanding who I am as an individual, so you can build the best experience. When we started Tealium, we knew that third-party cookies were going to weaken. I didn't know that there was going to be an outright revolt against them, but we felt that better first-party relationships were going to be where the winning vendors played. And so, a quick story that for me that I've been telling recently. I am a guitar player, and I love the Fender brand. I love the Fender products, and I've ordered a couple guitars recently. The challenge that I have is I'm left-handed, and so the availability of guitars is much lower for me than it is for right-handed players. And so I created a couple guitars, and I know, because I know what we do around the CDP front, I know that my spend put me into some audiences on the Fender side of things, whether it be price bands or certain type of instruments. But some of the challenges that I've seen are, I get advertised quite a bit from Fender around products that are only right-handed. And the one thing I'm never going to do is I'm never going to play a guitar right-handed. And so companies are collecting the data, and they know that there's value, and they need to use the data, but they really need to leverage it more. I see a lot of companies that just are not leveraging it enough. And so when you get to this concept of trust and mistrust, I think the category of mistrust not only covers data protection, but it also covers how you leverage it. I think data does speak volumes, but you have to listen to it. And so let's talk about first-party data, the data footprint, and using data as a tool for good. What are some of the best practices, the recommendations, when you guys are talking with Acxiom customers about reviewing their first-party data footprint?
Right. And yeah, to your point on mistrust, I'll just pick up on that. So I think depending on what industry you're in, you need to be more or less accurate and precise with your marketing data. So I'll give you an example. Like if you're in more of a packaged goods industry, so if you're buying shampoo from someone, or if you're buying razor blades from someone, or if you're buying protein powder from someone. Being approximately right is probably good enough. Vegas odds, as we've talked about in the industry, of, hey, if you could be right even 60% of the time for a mass good, that gets you a good start and will get you a good marketing lift. And if you contrast that with different product categories like credit card offers or healthcare, or even your relationship with your auto dealer and the email and direct mail you get from your auto dealer, you need the need to be accurate and precise is much higher in those direct consumer categories. I'll give an example from a recent client advisory board meeting we had. One of the auto dealership groups talked about how you can develop a multi-year relationship with a customer, and they buy a car from you in 2015 or 2016, and you're sending them emails year after year, and they're finally back in market. And if I screwed up your name in the email, Mike, and said I called you Mark Anderson instead of Mike Anderson, then I could immediately undone all that trust I built up over the years. So we kind of start with looking at, okay, what vertical are you in as a brand, and based on that, kind of how accurate do you have to be. So that's one good starting point when we think about first-party data. Second point, we'll immediately get into cleanliness of data. So you can have a great customer data asset, but if you're not keeping track of when people move, or if you're not keeping track of when people get in new relationships or get married or exit relationships, or if you're not able to distinguish that, hey, Mike has 9 emails and these are all tying back to the same person, that can really trip up your marketing efforts. So data cleanliness is key, to the point of then looking at how you can use that data. We work a lot with clients on norms and regulations, both in their industry and not just norms, but also laws in their industry, and kind of how you can use data. With regulations like CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act that rolled out this year, lots of other state regulations underway. So even the most sophisticated direct marketers have trouble keeping up with what they can do with data. And then there's also the element of, hey, in certain industries, healthcare and financial services, you can actually inadvertently break the law if you do the wrong thing with data. But in many other industries, there's industry norms around things you can do via direct mail that are different than what you might do via email, or what's permissible for a display or video ad message. So we work a lot with clients around how they can use their data within their industry. And then really most relevant for this discussion, it's, can I get my data to a point of decision? And what I mean by that is, can the marketer or advertiser use that data, that very relevant data point on Mike, that's going to increase the value exchange with you as a customer at that exact instant where they need it. So when you're logging into the website, when you're calling the call center, when you see an ad or promotion out on the open internet, you could have the best first-party data asset in the world, but if you can't get it to that point of decision in an accurate and timely way, where that data is current as well, then you're kind of stuck. So those are a few areas that we look at with clients around managing their first-party data and starting to bring it to campaigns, through partners like Tealium.
Yeah, one of the examples you mentioned is really one of my pet peeves, just around the trusting of data. When I do receive back-to-back email messages that are identical, that are just coming in on 3 variations of my email address, that it almost is an instant delete for me, because again, it's the bar has been set higher from my perspective. And so yeah, there's some of that happens. Even, you mentioned the credit card example. There's some parts where people, there's kind of like a sweet spot in there where you have to be intelligent, where you show that you actually know what the data is saying, but you have to avoid not being so hyper targeted on the top side that you're wondering what the data is that you're actually leveraging. And so I've seen some ads go out with credit cards that say, hey, David, based on your credit score, this is the credit card you're eligible for. And you think, how did you guys get a hold of my credit score? And because I don't have a credit card with you. And so those are, and again, you kind of have to think back about it and think like, how would I really want to be treated in this environment, and use that to kind of taper some of your efforts. And then we at Tealium are very, very opinionated on data around, it starts with the data layer for us. We believe you need a strong foundation, because that does help with that real time or right time activation. Consent and privacy is something that has been a very big part of our on the rails. And so those are a lot of the areas where we're making recommendations to our customers about how to truly be a data-driven organization and how to go through digital transformation. What do you guys typically at Acxiom recommend to your customers around taking on these data challenges?
Yeah, so beyond the kind of building on that framework I talked about earlier, we get a lot of questions around, hey, Acxiom, how is your data better than the next guy? And I'll take a step back. In certainly the digital advertising industry, the primary metric that digital advertisers are working towards is reach. So if they're using a data asset, they want to ensure that an attribute. So let's just say something like projected home ownership. Do we think you rent your house or own your house? Rent an apartment or own your house. I'm trying to optimize towards, hey, if I'm going to use that, I want to maximize the reach of that against as big an audience as possible. If I only have that information on 15 people, it's not going to be something I could use in an ad campaign, a broadcast ad campaign. But hey, if I have that attribute on 50 million people, then suddenly it's a lot more useful to me. So with that focus, though, on reach, there's a trade-off or lack of focus, at least in the digital industry, on accuracy. Often it's a zero-sum game. Hey, if you're trying to maximize your reach, maybe you're doing real damage to your accuracy. So at Acxiom, we really put a premium around accuracy and correctness of our data. And a few ways we can speak to that, or what's behind that, is we've been doing this for 50 years. Acxiom, just this year, we're proud to say we celebrated our 50th anniversary, and with all of that experience, we've got tons of examples of kind of how to do things right. Also, there's anyone's doing something for a long time, you get examples of how to do things wrong, and you learn along the way. So the accuracy of our data is something we really like to take pride in and hang our hat on. A second point that helps us stand out is the global footprint of our data. A lot of data organizations or data providers have great data in the U.S., but if you're a multinational and you want to have a consistent data asset in countries outside the U.S., you may struggle. So, Acxiom, we have data in over 60 countries. It's been a real investment area for us over the last 5 years or so. So that global footprint is really helpful. And then finally, coming back to privacy, where we started the conversation earlier, having a real focus on privacy and security around consumer data has always been tremendously important. I think now even more so with all these public data breaches that you hear about and read about. So being one of the only companies with a 5 out of 5 rating from Forrester around security and privacy data management practices also kind of helps us stand out. So those are just a couple reasons why we've had success both in the offline data world, kind of traditional direct mail marketing and direct response marketing, but really the growth we've seen in our business, certainly over the last 5 years, has been in the digital execution and digital use cases, and using either third-party data or helping brands with their first-party data around that side of things.
The 5 out of 5 rating on Forrester was amazing. So congratulations for that, and a happy birthday as well for the big 5-0. I can say you guys have always been in the industry and a big hitter in the industry. I can't tell you how many meetings that I've been in with large companies that say, how do you integrate with Acxiom? How do you integrate with Acxiom? Because it's always been a very important thing. It's such a huge milestone to be around for a long time. We've been around for 12 years. But for me personally, I was with a company here in San Diego called Website Story that was bought by Omniture that went on to become Adobe Analytics. And so I've been doing exactly this for about 20 years. It's been an interesting couple of decades. But now we have the clouds and data being so available. There are a lot of new companies popping up. And I think what's really important and exciting about this relationship is that alignment around data trust and use is absolutely essential when we are looking for technology partners. And so there's a lot of change that's going to continue to happen. And so I think companies need to break new ground and innovate, rather than just sitting back on their past achievements. And like you said, you guys have been around for 50 years. But I know that you've seen an acceleration over the last 5, especially around data and investment. And so that's it's just really great, and it excites us. We know that the no two customers are the same. We've looked at older systems that have fixed data schemas, and I truly believe that the future is open schemas and open data exchanges. And that really does elevate the trust game. You have to embrace your partners. You have to align on behalf of the customer to achieve not only data, the data value, but to maintain the data trust. And this is where closed ecosystems, I think, are really going to struggle because if all the customers you talk to, no one can truly have all their needs satisfied by a single closed system. And so when you're talking about trust and trusting the data, you're now talking about intra-partner. And so, and again, it forces us to be holding each other accountable, and it forces us to go into this having the same data philosophies. And so, talk to me about some of those things, that you guys have done recently that you think are highly innovative or that have helped you guys stand the test of time. I know you talked about globality and a lot of attributes, but there's a big people component too.
Yeah, so I think as we're to tie it back to earlier in the conversation, we're talking about how in this current economy, the choice to interact with a brand in person or digitally is kind of going away, right? So whether we want to or not, I think a lot of people do want to interact with brands digitally and log in and order your takeout lunch through a website versus just showing up at the restaurant or ordering, kind of pre-ordering, you name it, any even like hardware store stuff or things that we may not have thought about ordering online and picking up in person. So that that kind of the working with a brand as a kind of a digital front door as the primary choice has moved from an option to kind of a requirement. And with that, and ensuring that Acxiom's data that our customers license from us is available in these digital environments is becoming increasingly important. We've made some announcements this year from a partner front. We have some more coming out shortly around making Acxiom data available through CDPs like Tealium, so that in that, whether it's an in-app interaction or a call center interaction, that the identity and the full description of you as a consumer is easily accessible by a brand. So the way, kind of the simple story I tell around our Tealium partnership is that Tealium is really great at the pipes of getting data in real time out to a very vast ecosystem of partners where our brand customers may want to ensure that their Acxiom data asset is available. So we're in the business of having great identity that we can offer to a brand, having great descriptive data that we can offer to a brand, and then being able to put that together into a very high availability solution with partners like Tealium. So we're not in the game of building pipes and connections. We're in the game of data accuracy. I know from a Tealium side, you guys are a leader in building those pipes and connections, and but I don't know the exact number, but I know you have hundreds of integrations that you've built and maintained. So that's an example of something we've done recently to ensure that we're really on the cutting edge, is to be working with a partner like Tealium that has a first-party relationship with your customers, which is especially important in the demise of a third-party cookie world. So it has that first-party relationship and has that vast network of connections that you've built, and as a CTO, I imagine you at least if not personally, certainly indirectly oversee. I mean, how many connections do you guys have out in the ecosystem these days?
It's over 1,400. It's the last count was 1,408. Yes, it's a lot. It's been a lot of work to get it here. But it is a critical need in the market. I mean, good data and good data availability are the essentials, and everybody's different. Everybody's got a different stack, and so that's why we're really excited about the partnership. What we're seeing, each day that goes by, that the bar on data and experience is just being set very, very high, and it continues to go up. That my parents may not necessarily appreciate some of the things that we do, but there are people that are younger than me that their whole life has been nothing but tailored experiences, and so it's not moving towards generic messaging. It's very much moving towards one-to-one communication and one-to-one experience, and so the value and the quality of the data and the timing around activation and data syndication, those are going to be the companies that are able to truly leverage data and stand the test of time. So there's a chocolate and peanut butter combination here between Tealium and Acxiom that I think is quite powerful. And so with that, I'm going to give you the quick outro. Give me some wisdom and take us home.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again, Mike. And as I mentioned earlier, why we're excited by the partnership is that there's really very few, and call it less than a handful, if not just counting on a few fingers, platforms that have the reach that you have today, have the first-party relationship with brands that you have today, and has the server-side capability, so the ability to operate without a big dependency on a browser cookie, but to be able to do a lot of your data exchange on the server side, we find incredibly compelling. We think the experience Acxiom brings with the kind of the beneath the surface complexity around managing customer data. The old analogy that when you see a duck swimming, it's very smooth above the surface, but underneath the legs are paddling and motoring like crazy. That certainly applies to data management and everything we talked about: identity, regulation, usage, correctness, all of that. So we feel like that's something we bring great industry experience and heritage to. So looking forward to what I'm sure will be a very powerful partnership for our end customers to pay off on these digital customer experiences that we're seeing come online at a rate I don't think any of us could have expected even a few months ago.
Absolutely, and I will steal that duck analogy because that it speaks truths. All right, David, thank you so much. It's fantastic. Here comes, I believe, our esteemed host, Ashley, to wind us down.
Great. Great. Thanks, Mike and David. We appreciate all of the insights. As a thank you for attending our Summer of Data Love playlist series, you have been automatically entered for a chance to win a $100 gift card to Live Nation for a future concert of your choice. The winner will be contacted this afternoon. We also want to remind you that you'll have the opportunity to win a Live Nation gift card for each webinar that you attend in the series. And if you join us live for all 5, you'll be entered to win a Music Lover's Prize of your choice valued at over $300. If you found this webinar to be helpful, we encourage you to join again next week for part 2 of the series, Grilling Up Data Insights, Delighting Your Customers' Experience Appetite with our partner Content Square, where we'll be discussing how to pair unique data insights with real-time delivery to provide the best customer experience possible. Thank you so much for joining us. Please be sure to check out the related resources in the attachments and links section.